Hello, this is Nima Golbabai on KUCI 88.9 Irvine. So we're back with another pre-recorded show. I'm basically doing this because I started my job and I hadn't yet got permission to start Wednesdays an hour later so I can make this show, but I do have permission now, so I will be back with you for the finale in person on air, and hopefully next quarter I get to retain my time slot so I can continue this show because I do really enjoy it. I think despite my pauses and my use of the word like or I think I do a pretty decent job, and I hope you enjoy. Today's episode I have probably a bit of a weird one because it's going to be the new mall show, and by new I mean like a month old. And I think that won't be enough for us to fulfill an hour, so I think we're going to do the first season of The Sopranos, so it's kind of a disjointed review. But yeah, let's get into Mall Shadow Lord, which I recently finished because I kind of stopped watching it and then I finished it up. I'll first say this, I like the show for sure. It's definitely a little bit overrated, but that's mostly due to the fact that things nowadays just are more overrated for reasons I've discussed before. There's content thirst, and certain rating sites like Rotten Tomatoes don't allow you to review unless you're verified, which basically kind of like makes, or no, I think it needs you to have an account, which means like it likely is going to tilt towards people that liked it enough to make an account. So it is a little overrated if you look at IMDb and Rotten Tomatoes. However, that is not to say it is not a good show. I think it's actually a very good show, and I personally think the last two episodes reach into that like great S tier sort of Star Wars content. Mall Shadow Lord is kind of like a new style Star Wars show. It was a lot slower, and it was kind of like a gritty crime based show, at least for the beginning. And that's actually kind of the weakest part of the show. It really gets into its own where it goes back to being like Star Wars. I think it's somewhat interesting doing like a gritty crime Star Wars show, but also it doesn't really reach into great territory for me. And yeah, so that's like the premise of the show, and essentially it takes place, I think, a few years into the Empire, and Maul is kind of like on this planet called Anaxis, I believe. It's kind of a metropolis, and there's lots of criminals on it. And this is when we're introduced to a fair few filler characters that I'm not the biggest fan of. I didn't even like know their name. But these characters are, let's see what their names are. Yeah, I don't even know their names, but there's this one guy who plays this really tiny alien character, and he's just a very annoying addition to the show. He's trying to be funny, and it really doesn't work. It's kind of like the C-3PO / Jar Jar Binks comic relief character that, you know, maybe isn't as bad as Jar Jar, but he's certainly like just a waste of time. Sam Witwer returns as Maul, which he voiced in Clone Wars. And honestly, my problem with this version of Maul is, and I think this carries over from season 7, a lot of the scenes are just him like mumbling and kind of saying a bunch of generic like Darth Maul-esque lines, like something something dark side and something something I was betrayed, and XYZ is kind of the same sort of dialogue, but that doesn't really have to do with Sam Witwer. My favorite character of this was probably Master Daki, who is the Jedi character, who I didn't really like at the beginning, but he really grew on me. And, spoiler alert, this is going to have some spoilers. He dies at the end, and he really goes out like a hero. And I really enjoy characters that go out with a lot of honor. And he died like a true knight, a true Jedi master. And yeah, great addition. Well done, Disney, for making this character. And then we have the Jedi Master's young apprentice, Devin, who is basically being attempting to be recruited by Darth Maul, who manages to capture her away from her master and tries to turn her to the dark side. She escapes, resists. These are the first few episodes. And at the same time, like I said, this is like a crime series, and there's a detective and his droid named Two Boots. And yeah, they're kind of looking for Maul as well, but then they kind of get mixed up with Maul's criminals and then the Jedi. And then the sort of turning point of the series is, let me tell you, it was, I think, the end of episode 4, where the Empire arrives, and also the Jedi, Master Daki and Devin, fight Maul, and at the end of the episode, the Empire arrives and a Star Destroyer comes in, blockades the planet. Then you have Chapter 5, Episode 5, which is kind of more generic Inquisitor stuff. I'm not a huge fan of the Inquisitors as characters. I really think they're just filler for like Dave Filoni to waste time with like nameless characters with no actual development. However, these were at least cooler Inquisitors. And I'll say this, the lightsaber duels are very frustrating in this show until the end, where it really becomes clear why they did it the way they did it. What I mean like by that is there's repeated lightsaber duels over and over again, and nobody dies, nobody loses an arm, nobody gets cut. And I was really annoyed with this. I was like, come on, are we just gonna watch them hit each other with baseball bats and no one gets hurt for like 8 episodes? But then at the end, I'm like, okay, I understand they built up all this tension, and in the end it's kind of released, and fine, I'm good with that. I respect that once it's over. Spoiler alert, it's when Master Daki dies, and I believe Devin kills an Inquisitor, if I'm remembering correctly. So episode 5 is kind of filler, just Inquisitors running around. Sorry, bit of a yawn. Chapter 6. I think it's just continuing the Inquisitors chasing Maul, but it's a bit better, I believe, and there's some cool action scenes. Yeah, Devin fights the Inquisitors. Maul and the Jedi team up against the Inquisitors, because the Empire is kind of like the common enemy. Chapter 7, Maul takes a stand. This is rated highly. As you can see, I don't really remember what happens in every episode because on one hand, they're not as memorable as the Clone Wars, but on the other hand, that's more understandable because it is not an episodic show where like every episode's like standalone or every arc is standalone. It very much is like sorry about that sound. It's very much a show that follows a story and it does move slowly, and it has somewhat of a hangout vibe to it where you're just spending time with some characters. So just reading some reviews, they're a little funny. Okay, so then we're on episode 8. They're sort of still on the run, but the last 2 episodes are where I really like. There's some great tension in these episodes, some great lightsaber fights, and it is really actually fun to watch Maul team up with the Jedi. Although there was this thing in the back of my head where I was like, no, this is Darth Maul. I don't believe he's turning over a leaf. I don't believe in a redemption arc for Darth Maul. Because it was like focusing a lot on his pain and his suffering and how Sidious like tortured him and stole him and turned him into an evil Dark Lord. And I was like, okay, be careful with that because I don't really think a redemption arc is proper for this character. Especially knowing how he ends in Rebels. If you consider that sort of thing canon, I don't know. I do. I consider Rebels probably canon, or at least mostly canon. So, what was I saying? Yeah, so I was like a little worried that they were trying to make the last episode like Maul is gonna turn good. But I enjoyed watching the Jedi fight with Maul. And then we get the final episode, which is really quite perfect. Nothing wrong or nothing bad to say about this episode. We get to see Darth Vader in his full form fighting off 2 Jedi, Darth Maul, just sort of like battering them like they're nothing. And Maul kind of realizes he can't beat Vader, and essentially Devin is fighting an Inquisitor on her own, and Master Daki, and Maul are fighting Vader. And then something turns very ominously. Maul just sort of looks around and like backs away from Vader, leaving Daki to fight him on his own. And then Daki's killed. And you immediately know what Maul is trying to do. He, unbeknownst to Devin, who is Master Daki's apprentice, abandoned Daki to die, purposely wanting Devin to see her master be killed and just go crazy with rage, and then finally consent to being his apprentice. So this to me was like saving my concerns about having a Maul redemption arc, because I like that he flirted with being good, but in the end he can't change who he is. He's like basically a Sith claimant, at least. A former Sith Lord. And he's always going to put his own desire for power above other people. And he does something very dishonorable. He basically tricks Master Daki, who he was helping fight Vader, and just backs away and lets Daki die. And his apprentice just goes insane and wants revenge, and she ends the story with, ends the episode with, I don't remember exactly what the line was, but she was like, fine, I'll do it, meaning she'll be his apprentice. And it was kind of the perfect end, and I'm hyped for the second season because they really ended it on a good note, and I'm interested in the character of Devon. At first, I was like, she's kind of just like there, and I don't know what the circumstances are going to be for her becoming Maul's apprentice, but by the end of the show, I was like, okay, this is compelling. Like, she has a fury in her, and I want to see what she does. She wants to kill Vader and avenge her master. And I want to see what Maul does to train her, and how Maul's going to continue to be a threat to Darth Sidious and the Galactic Empire. So, yeah, very good show, and a very great ending to a very good show. What else can I say about this show? Oh, the animation, I know people love it, but I will say it's good, but it's not really my type of thing. They tried to do like a mix of hand-drawn and animated, and they did this thing where like the backgrounds were a lot of times like done kind of like with a blurry effect, meaning like it was hand-drawn and not detailed, and I'm not the biggest fan of that. Sorry. I'm not the biggest fan of that choice they did. I understand they want to make something unique, but it's not my thing for Star Wars content. I liked the Clone Wars animation, like, beyond, like, Season 2. Like, to me, that was just good. It didn't need to be pretty. It just needed to be easy to see. But I don't know what else I can say. Voice actors, everybody was good, but yeah, I would say the best voice actor was probably still Maul. Yeah, but I can't talk anymore about this because I think I've exhausted the topic. So, The Sopranos. A show that I've never seen, but I've been wanting to watch for a long time because it's very highly rated, of course. And over the past months, I've been getting clips of The Sopranos, and I find the show very funny in these clips. So, I had a big desire to see it. And I sat down and I was like, just gonna go watch it. You know what else inspired me to watch it? I've been watching Curb Your Enthusiasm, and in one of the episodes, Larry and Cheryl sit down to watch The Sopranos, and that's for some reason inspired me. And I've based like 70% of my personality and humor around Larry David because I watched it when I was like in middle school. And I don't know, I just really like the character, so I find him very funny. So I think I based certainly a lot of my humor on Larry David, but a lot of things I've realized are similar to him. I even quote certain things in certain episodes that I first saw many years ago, and I don't even realize I'm taking it from him sometimes. But now that I've been rewatching it, I realize like, oh wow, this is from this. So the pilot episode is a great episode. And I love the concept for this show. And, full disclosure, this is spoilers. So, this is a very great show. If you don't want spoilers, then don't watch this. The pilot kind of sneaks up on you. It really does. If you don't know what a pilot is, it's this old thing on TV where you would make a test show. Usually you would have a lower budget, but you would present your characters, present your story. You would show it to some test audiences, and if they were really interested in it, the network would greenlight your show, give you a whole budget and all that, and you're off to the races. And so yeah, this is a pilot, i.e. the first episode, and they don't really do it as much anymore, but back in the day it was way more important. So let me read you the storyline. Tony Soprano is a New Jersey mobster with a complicated life. He's recently passed out from the results of an anxiety attack and begins to see a psychiatrist, Dr. Jennifer Melfi. Tony's mother is at an age where she should be in a retirement home but flatly refuses, obviously preferring to nag her son. His father's brother, Uncle Junior, is planning a hit at the restaurant owned by his high school buddy, Artie Boko. A rival company is edging in on his trash removal business. At home, his teenage daughter, Meadow, is rebelling against her parental authority, especially her mother's. Finally, a family of wild ducks that had taken to living in his backyard pool and who he has fed regularly has flown away. I'm just reading that synopsis. That doesn't really do a good job of imparting the feeling, but believe me when I say this is a beautiful episode. It actually brought tears to my eyes. Essentially, Tony is kind of, first of all, fantastic concept for a show, because obviously these gangster Italian mob shows are all about tough guys that have no emotions, really. Or maybe they flirt with it a bit, but they kill that part inside them. Think of Al Pacino playing Michael Corleone in Godfather 1. He starts off as a good person, but by the end of the movie, he's killed that part inside him. And by Godfather 2, he's fully in command. He's willing to throw out his own wife, shut the door on her face. He's willing to murder his own brother who betrayed him. So he's fully into it. But this show is a bit different. This is a mobster who is having anxiety attacks. And the whole concept of seeing a psychiatrist is very taboo in the mob culture, especially a female one. And essentially his anxiety attack happened because over the period of, I don't know, a few weeks, there were ducks living in his pond, and he was bonding with them, and they were his pets, and all of a sudden they fly away, and he panics, and he grabs his heart, and he just collapses. And he goes to the therapist, and they basically work this out together. What does this mean? What do these ducks mean to me? And they basically come to the conclusion that Tony, he's feeding these ducks he's their father, and the ducks are like his children or his family, and he's providing for them. And when he sees them fly away, he panics because he is feeling like there's impending doom coming to him and his family, and it's all going to be taken away, like those ducks. So this first episode, we see what Tony's dealing with. He's stressed. He feels like it's going to be over soon, and he's going to be separated from his family. And then we see this great dynamic, and in my opinion, some of the most enjoyable scenes from this show is him sitting down with his therapist, I think it's a brilliant story tactic because we get to like actually see what he's thinking and sort of get some insight about what it means. I love the actress that plays Jennifer Melfi. I don't know what her name is, but I will say it in 1 second. Lorraine Bracco. Really good actress. I really am endeared to her character. Obviously, James Gandolfini is great. Edie Falco, Carmela is amazing. Michael Imperioli, I like Christopher's actor a lot. Paulie's actor, Tony Sirico, I like a lot. Who else do I really enjoy? Junior's actor is Junior's like a clown. He's funny. And of course, there's Tony's mother. And Tony's mother is a very annoying woman that goes on a very unexpected and interesting arc. And I don't know if we'll get to the end of the first season, but frankly, I probably shouldn't even spoil where this thing goes because I really was shocked by how good some of these characters' arcs were. And then we got the kids, AJ Soprano, played by Robert Eiler, and Meadow Soprano, played by Jamie Lynn Sigler. I like both of the kids. I find them very funny and cool. And there's two episodes where Tony gets to spend time with his kids, and it really develops their characters nicely. The next episode is basically a feud between Tony and his uncle Junior, and it's kind of creating big problems between them because they're like the two most powerful people. So Christopher Moltisanti and his friend Brendan Fallone hijack a truckload of DVD players, but unfortunately the truck and the merchandise belongs to a company that is Uncle Junior's protection. He's not happy man, and it takes a sit-down arbitrated by Jackie Abril to calm things down. Christopher and Brendan don't like the results, however. Brendan decides to go off on his own, but it leads to a royal mess. Tony's mother has a fire in her kitchen, confirming in the minds of everyone except her that she can no longer live without some sort of assisted care. They try a companion, but that doesn't work. Essentially, Tony is dealing with a woman who is his mother that is very, very ungrateful, unloving, constantly complaining, talking behind people's back, has nothing good to say ever, no matter what he does. Like, he hires a person to live with her and, clean up after her, be the nurse, basically, so she can live in her own house. But then she has a problem with it because the woman's black, and she drives the black nurse out of her house because she's, racist. And it's just a disaster, and basically Tony is just, hold on. Yeah, I think in this one he moves her into the nursing home, if not the next episode. One of AJ's teachers has his car stolen out of the school parking lot, and Tony decides to recover it for him in order to help his son's grades. Okay, that was that episode. So that's a not as important one, but it is still very good. And I should say, these episodes are really brilliantly written. The dialogue is great. It's a perfect blend of drama and comedy. It's really impressive, some of the stuff they did. Okay. So the next episode is kind of interesting because it deals with like the different ethnic groups in New York or New Jersey, both really. So Tony is contracted by basically the grandfather of a Hasidic Jewish family, who's being ripped off by his son-in-law, who's abusing his daughter. So this older man contracts Tony to deal with the problem. Okay, so here's the whole storyline. Christopher and Brendan return the truckload of stolen suits, but Uncle Junior wants to send a clear message. Jackie Abril is continuing with his chemotherapy, and Tony has a special present for him. So the boss is Jackie, but he's in chemotherapy in the hospital. Yeah, that special present is a little inappropriate, but it was a very cool scene, very nice. Meadow has been working hard at school and tries to get Christopher to supply her with a drug. I'm not going to say what it is. I'm sure I can on air, but I'm not going to keep her going while she studies for SATs. A local hotel owner seeks out Tony's help in dealing with the son-in-law. So this is what I'm talking about, who is refusing to give his man's daughter a divorce unless he gets half of the family business. So it's a stick-up, basically. He's demanding a bunch of money for a divorce. Silvio and Polly pay him a visit, but he's proving to be very stubborn and hard to convince. And basically by the end, they do convince him with a little bit of a very convincing negotiating tactics, let's say. Carmela hosts a fundraiser catered by their friends Artie and Charmine Bucco, who still haven't been able to collect on the insurance from a restaurant fire. Charmaine has something interesting to tell her. Oh yeah, that was that Tony and her briefly were in love. Give me 1 second here. Alright, sorry. Okay, next one. We're getting up to maybe my second or third favorite episode of the season. That's the next episode. And I'd really like to talk about that one. So, with Brendan dead, Christopher isn't sure exactly who's after him. After he realizes it was Uncle Junior, he's prepared to start a mob war. Tony meets his uncle, but with Jackie Abril on his last legs, there's little room for compromise. When Jackie dies, the capos want Tony to take over, but he has another idea, one that he thinks will still leave him in charge. Essentially, he wants to give the job of boss to his uncle, who's basically not the guy that's supposed to get it. It's supposed to be Tony. Tony has the support, but his uncle is essentially going to start a war and start killing people if he doesn't get it. So Tony has a plan. Just give it to his uncle and let his uncle like collect some money, wear some nice suits, but Tony will control the muscle. And like he'll really call the shots because he controls the guys and has the muscle and most of the businesses under his control, and nobody really respects his uncle that much except his own guys. And yeah, so at school, AJ has a strange encounter with a classmate. I think this is the episode where he gets into a fight, but the kid doesn't want to fight him because he knows his dad's in the mob. His sister, Meadow, clues him in on exactly what his father does for a living. Tony begins to have romantic dreams about his psychiatrist, Dr. Melfi, and gets a broken down cop on the he gets like a corrupt cop to take tabs on her. He oversteps just a little. He basically tries to like kiss his psychiatrist, and the ending of this episode is very good and very iconic. It's like a classic mob scene movie, very Godfather-esque, but with the gritty, toned down aspect of the Sopranos. It's them in their really beautiful suits and double-breasted suits at the funeral of their friend Jackie. Um um yeah, so it ends with them all in their mob suits at the funeral of their friend Jackie, but then the mob boss Jackie, but it like sort of pans over to AJ, who, remember, his sister told him that their dad was in the mafia, and AJ didn't really fully believe it, but he's sort of watching his father and all his friends in their suits and realizing like, oh, this is what my father is. And it's pretty sad, but it's also a brilliant scene. It's beautiful. It's a really amazing show, I have to say. And it's good to know it ends really great, because so many shows are like, oh, it's such a great show, but the ending was the worst thing I've ever seen. Like Game of Thrones. Alright. This is like either my second or third favorite. It's called College, and it's such a simple episode. And it really doesn't have much to do with the main plot. And sometimes these episodes are the best. It's literally just Tony and his daughter like going to Maine, I think, to tour a college. And Tony, they're like at a gas station, and he sees someone that I'll just tell you, I'll read the synopsis or the story summary. With Carmela homesick with the flu, Tony and Meadow head off to Maine, visiting different colleges. They're having a good time, and Tony is honest with her about what he does for a living. Like, these scenes are so brilliant. It's Tony and his daughter just talking, and his daughter basically telling him that she wants to know what he really does for a job, and he opens up just a little bit, but it's really nice to see. And he does seem like a good father. He's shocked, however, to see a one-time gangster, Fabian Petrulio, who some 12 years before testified against some fellow mobsters and is now living under the witness protection program. So essentially, Tony is at a gas station, and he gets a glimpse of a guy he's seen like 10 years ago who turned out to be a rat in prison. So Tony is like deciding to do something about it, and this is intercut with Carmela getting a visit from Father Phil, who ends up spending the night. She also gets a call from Dr. Melfi, his psychiatrist, and learns that his doctor is a woman. So Carmela thinks Tony's cheating on him, and also Carmela has this weird relationship with this priest that gets very close to women but doesn't outright sin. It's a very strange relationship. The guy's voice is like an audiobook too. But anyway, back in Maine, we get like 30 plus minutes of incredible tension building and just some really awesome, it's just like a thrill. It's like a tense thriller for the next 30-40 minutes, and we just get this awesome little chase where Tony's trying to sneak up and kill this guy, and this guy figures it out, and he's trying to kill Tony, and we get so many like near-death instances, and then finally Tony sneaks up behind him and chokes him to death and goes home. It's a brilliant episode, and it really excited me when I watched it, because it was like so cinematic, the tension. Next episode is called Pax Soprana. I'm sorry I'm clearing my nose a lot. It's just I'm very plugged right now. I don't know if it's because it's night. Maybe I'll sit up. Okay, I'm sitting up now. We have about 20 mins. I don't know if we'll finish the whole story. Like I said, I'm not against that because it's such a great show. I don't really want to spoil. Now I'm hiccuping. I don't really want to spoil the ending if I don't have to. So we'll just go along. So, basically, Junior is the boss now, and peace has been established. There's no mob war. Tony gets another report from the cop who's been keeping an eye on Dr. Melfi. He's still having romantic dreams about her, but he is suffering from a certain side effect of Prozac. We'll not get into it. And he's distancing himself from Carmela, his wife. He tells Jennifer Melfi about how he feels about her, but she has an explanation for his emotions. Uncle Junior is the new boss and is making his presence felt. He decides to tax Hesh, who has a special arrangement with his predecessor. Hesh doesn't mind being taxed, but it's the amount he doesn't like. The other captains are unhappy as well. Junior is stepping in on some of the money-earning schemes without even having the courtesy of telling them about it. Tony approaches New York boss Johnny Sacramone to find a solution to the situation. So Junior's sort of making a mess of it. Junior's not that smart. He's kind of just like a egomaniac. Not even an egomaniac. He's just like, he wants to be in charge, but he also is not like that impressive, or he didn't really earn it for any other reason that Tony just gave it to him because he didn't want a war. And also, Tony knew like he controlled the muscle, so, and like Tony made a deal with him to like hand over some businesses to get his support, so he just made himself more powerful in many ways. So yeah, that was that episode. Next episode is called Down Neck. I don't really know what that means. Whew. So this episode, AJ gets in trouble at school. He and two other boys steal sacramental wine from the church. Tony and Carmela are told he may have ADD. This is kind of like funny and kind of topical, where like the kid gets in trouble and like the school's response is like he has some sort of mental condition, which is not necessary to say. He's suspended from school for 3 days and is told to visit his grandmother, where he lets it slip that Tony is seeing a psychiatrist. So AJ accidentally tells his grandma that his dad is seeing a psychiatrist because AJ doesn't understand that there's a massive stigma in their culture group and their profession about seeing a psychiatrist, because, you know, it's like tough guys, they're supposed to figure out their own problems. You know, they're not to show any emotion, especially because it's a female psychiatrist. And this is a huge mistake that AJ told his grandmother, because his grandma is deeply disloyal, and she basically immediately lets it slip to Junior, who is Tony's rival, and basically the only person that could do any damage to Tony.
she lets it slip to him that he's seeing a psychiatrist. This undermines Tony, and this rumor could get out and things could be bad. So this situation causes Tony to reflect on his own times at that age. Yeah, we get a bunch of flashbacks, and he sees his dad and his uncle Junior beat up someone to collect a debt as a child. And when he was younger, Tony thought his father showed favoritism to his sister Janice by taking her to a fun fair every Sunday. He decides to find out what they were doing. In fact, his father was conducting business with other mobsters who were also taking their daughters with them as a cover. Very good episode, and you see why Tony came out the way he did, because his father was a criminal, and his mother, and this has been established throughout the show, his mother has left him with loads of problems with not only with other women and how he perceives them, but just his mother never showed him any real love. So he kind of has a big chip on his shoulder, and he's trying to find mother replacements. And Dr. Melfi thinks the reason he's attracted to her is because she's the only woman in his life that actually wants to help him, but she's also paid to help him. So he shouldn't fall in love with her. So yeah. It's house cleaning time when Tony and his fellow mobsters learn that Larry Boy Barisi's daughter's wedding. Learn at the wedding that the feds are about to bring down indictments. Tony gets rid of whatever cash, jewelry, and guns he has around the house. Carmela takes her mother-in-law out for lunch, where Tony goes into her room and hides the stuff. They're essentially hiding a bunch of money in a nursing home that their parents live in, and other mobsters and Tony's crew are moving their mothers in to hide a bunch of guns and money there, because their view is the feds are not going to bug or raid a nursing home. So Christopher is upset with a number of things. He's having trouble with his movie screenplay. I like the character of Christopher. He's a very earnest person that just wants to be recognized for the effort he's putting in, but he feels undervalued. And this causes him to want to write a screenplay about mobsters, because it's he can maybe get some recognition there. But he barely knows how to spell, so it's kind of sad. He's having trouble with his movie screenplay, and he's upset that his late friend Brendan has been making the local news as a mafioso, but he doesn't even get a mention, so it's funny. He just can't get any notoriety, I guess. Dr. Melfi, meanwhile, mentions at a family dinner that she has a mobster as a patient. Her ex-husband doesn't like it, and this episode is also where, like I said, Tony's mom tells Boss Jr. that Tony's seeing a psychiatrist, basically just driving a wedge between them. And this is when you start to get into the mother's head, and you realize, oh wait, she's not just a angry woman, old lady that hates everything and everyone. She's actually kind of a schemer. She's trying to turn people against each other. She takes little information and either twists it or gives it to certain people to offend them, so they create problems. And she's very slick, and basically because she's kind of reminds me of Cersei Lannister. But this character is way worse than Cersei, in my opinion, because at least Cersei had some redeemable qualities. This woman really does not have redeemable qualities. But she's like Cersei in a way where she uses her gender to shield her from loads of I guess, suspicion, or she uses it to play outside the rules. But I would say this character does even more than Cersei, because unlike Cersei, who actually holds like a political title of queen consort, um, this woman is just like Tony's mother. She is in a very like patriarchal system where women don't get a say in anything, yet she manages to like scheme and turn the men against each other. So she's very clever. And this episode is where you really start finding out who she is, and that she's not just this terrible mother that hates her kids. And I should also mention, like Tony has talked about with his psychiatrist, that he remembers as a kid his mother like talking about how she was gonna kill her children. So she's like a very bad person, psychopathic and self-obsessed, and yeah, she's a great character though. I really didn't expect her to be a great character. I thought she was just an annoying lady, but no, she's very interesting. Oh, the next episode, it was kind of sweet. It's called Boca, after Boca Raton, Florida, where Junior and his girlfriend go on holiday, and it's kind of a sweet episode. Everyone's under surveillance. Uncle Junior decides to take a vacation with his girlfriend. His biggest worry is that she might tell someone about certain things that I'm not going to get into that are looked down upon in the mob community. And it's a very funny scene where he's talking about how she shouldn't tell anybody. And basically Tony figures out about it, and because the woman's a blabbermouth, and he pokes fun at Junior, who's also the boss. So this is causing problems. So Junior retaliates by letting it known that he knows about Tony seeing a psychiatrist. So this is a problem. There's tension between the boss and Tony, and he's disrespecting his uncle, and you get the feeling like this is all going to come to a head eventually. This is also coinciding with his daughter's girls soccer team, and the coach is really good, and the girls like him. And sorry, not the girls like him, the dads like him, and they're obsessed when they read he's leaving to coach a college team, until they learn that he is sleeping with one of his students. And this is a big realization for the audience, in my opinion, because it's kind of crazy. Allie Vandermeed early in the episode had attempted suicide, but we didn't really know why, but we found out this is one of the reasons. So basically, like, Tony resolves to get this guy like killed, but then he's convinced to just report her to the police by his psychiatrist, and the guy's arrested. And yeah. That was a great episode too. Oh, this is an interesting episode, the next one. Oh, this is where we're going to stop, though. 10th episode. Christopher's girlfriend, Adriana, sees herself having a career in the music industry, so chance meeting with rap star Massive Genius seems to be the opportunity she's been looking for. Christopher is supportive, but Genius has other goals in mind. He's out to get money for Hesh, who he feels cheated a black artist 40 years ago, and he definitely wants to have romantic relations with Adriana. Adriana has her eye on a group that she thinks is bound for stardom, but no one seems to agree. This is very funny. Like, there's this fake band and they're kind of terrible, but they're convinced they're good, and the audience is kind of like watching, like, are they good or are they bad? They kind of seem kind of average. But uh, Tony meanwhile decides he wants to expand his circle of friends and focuses on his next door neighbor, Dr. Cusimano, who has these friends who are like Anglo-Saxons. They're like wasps, basically. And Tony, his whole life is Italian people. Maybe, every once in a while it's someone else, but he doesn't really hang out with anyone who's not in his mob family or Italian people. So he decides to broaden his horizon and go golfing with two Anglo-Saxon Protestants, and um, basically they just ask him questions about the mob and ask him to do impressions and all this stuff. And when Tony's talking to his psychiatrist, he recounts on a story where he used to make fun of this kid with a cleft palate, a cleft lip. If you don't know, that's babies that are born with deformed upper lip, and the kid couldn't talk right, but Tony and his friends would have him around to make fun of him and get him to do like voices and stuff. But he's talking to a psychiatrist, and he's relating this where he was using this kid as like a monkey for amusement. And he said when he was on that golf course, he realized that he was just a monkey to those people. So it is kind of sad and also poignant that he realized what he did to that kid as a child was not good. And it's also kind of interesting how Tony is kind of self-aware, which is why he's such a good character. He's not like an evil guy. He's just does evil things. And that's a very interesting character dynamic. This is a good episode. I think it's the one with the least high rating, but it's still very good. Alright, that's been about an hour. So thank you. I'll be with you live next time. And yeah, I don't know what we'll do. I think I'll watch a movie that I'll probably like. I'll do probably a really good movie that I've watched before, and I'll review it for you, and we'll sign out our show, and hopefully we'll be back for I think season 3, right? So yeah, thank you guys.